Well, friends, the season is upon us. That's right, the most vaunted holiday of all is right around the corner. Of course, I'm speaking of the return of Lower Decks for its fifth and final season. So I thought the best way we could celebrate is by honoring the great work over at Screen Rant done by Jen Watson as to the Star Trek Voyager characters who have appeared in Lower Decks. This is touted as every Star Trek Voyager character, but let's read on and actually discover who we have seen in Lower Decks from Star Trek Voyager. Because Star Trek Lower Decks takes place in the early 2380s, shortly after the USS Voyager's return to the Alpha Quadrant in 2378, cameos from Star Trek Voyager characters are not only possible, but expected. In Lower Decks' nearly overflowing basket of Star Trek Easter eggs, Star Trek Voyager characters crossing over to Star Trek Lower Decks establishes the continuity between the two shows, and also helps viewers catch up with USS Voyager crew members after Voyager ended. This is especially interesting for the Voyager characters who aren't in Star Trek Prodigy or Star Trek Picard. I think it's actually Star Trek Picard, if I remember correctly.
Is there a John Luck Picard here?
In the few years since Captain Catherine Janeway's, Kate Mulgrew, homecoming, the details of the USS Voyager's perilous journey from the Delta Quadrant have become common knowledge among Lieutenants Beckett Mariner, Brad Boimler, Sam Rutherford, Devon Attendee, and Yes, we got T'Lyn in there. The USS Voyager's place in Starfleet history as the Little Intrepid-class starship that traversed 70,000 light-years in a mere 7 years makes the Star Trek Voyager crew into modern legends. Not quite on the level of the USS Enterprise D crew. I might have to disagree there as far as internal logic and consistency of the universe. I might say Voyager is more famous than the Enterprise D crew, but I suppose that is open for debate. Not quite on the level of the USS Enterprise D, but heroes to the USS Cerritos junior officers all the same. Let's kick this off with a number 8, our honorable mention, 7 of 9, played by Jeri Ryan in Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 9, The Inner Fight. I don't know why I'm punching. It's not the boxing episode where Chakotay beats a cosmic entity in the ring. Boy, was that a good one, right? An honorable mention, and it's literally just a mention, goes to Jeri Ryan's 7 of 9, whose name is dropped in Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 9, The Inner Fight. 7's name appears on a list of former Starfleet officers and associates who might need protection in the wake of a series of targeted attacks.
7 of 9, Beverly Crusher, Thomas Riker, and Nick Locarno.
While the USS Cerritos goes after disgraced ex-Starfleet cadet Nick Locarno, Robert Duncan McNeil, who apparently wasn't just an undercover alternate name of Tom Paris, who wanted to avoid the stigma of having an admiral for a father, as I always thought, but is truly an alternate character within the same universe, just played by the same person. Once again, though, I do digress. Another ship gets to look for 7 of 9, who at the time of Star Trek Lower Decks is working as a vigilante with the Fenris Rangers near the Romulan Neutral Zone. Number 7, Lieutenant Tom Paris, Robert Duncan McNeil in Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 3. We'll always have Tom Paris, and yes, we will. He's not going anywhere, friends.
It's a pleasure to have you on my bridge, Lieutenant Paris.
Pleasure's all mine, Captain Freeman.
Naturally, Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 3 will always have Tom Paris, includes the USS Voyager's helmsman, Lieutenant Tom Paris, visiting the USS Cerritos. Paris is on a handshake tour of Starfleet vessels as part of a public relations campaign following Voyager's return to the Alpha Quadrant. As an enthusiast of all things Starfleet, Ensign Brad Boimler is excited to meet Tom Paris and get his commemorative Voyager, Voy plate signed. Ooh, a note. Through dialogue, Star Trek Prodigy reveals that Tom Paris and his wife B'Elanna Torres, Roxanne Dawson, still work for Starfleet designing spacefaring vehicles. Torres worked on designing the USS Protostar, while Paris contributed ideas to the single-pilot flighters flown by Prodigy's Nova Squadron, and I think I put an extra L in there, but I can't go back and redo that. Despite the fact that Tom Paris was in prison when Star Trek Voyager began, Paris's years of service on the USS Voyager proved his dedication to Starfleet. Like Commander Chakotay, Robert Beltran, and Voyager's other Maquis crew members, Paris's crimes against the Federation were forgiven, and his Starfleet rank was reinstated. Don't know why I pronounced it that way, but you're gonna have to live with that. Number 6, Lieutenant Commander Tuvok, Tim Russ. Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 1, Grounded. Absolutely was curious to find out if they were going to bother including him here, and I am very happy that they did. Commander Tuvok appears for just a moment in Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3 Episode 1 Grounded. The glimpse of Tuvok in Star Trek Lower Decks reveals that the USS Voyager's former chief security officer has been promoted to full commander and still works within Starfleet security. Tuvok's Vulcan mind meld abilities are instrumental in the success of Starfleet Security's mission to free the USS Cerritos Captain Carol Freeman by uncovering the Pac-led conspiracy that framed that very same Captain Freeman.
Under some rather invasive questioning from Commander Tuvok.
I was curious to see if they'd mention this. Actually, is there more? Yes. Commander Tuvok doesn't speak in that brief flashback, so technically, Star Trek Lower Decks cannot count Tim Russ among its many Star Trek cameos. If the upcoming final season of Star Trek Lower Decks does feature Star Trek Voyager's resident Vulcan in a speaking cameo, Lower Decks would be the third Star Trek show that Russ appears in as Tuvok after Voyager and Star Trek Picard. Is that correct? No, because Tim Russ played Tuvok in Deep Space Nine as well. It was Mirror Universe Tuvok, but I think technically that counts, and then if you want to throw in the fact that he has sort of kind of been retconned into Star Trek Generations on the B because then he transferred to the Excelsior or vice versa, whichever way that worked out. I don't know. I know that's a very ancillary type of thing anyways, but I do believe his Deep Space Nine appearance as Mirror Tuvok should count since it is all the same genes and however you want to define a person. Alright, let's go to number 5. The USS Voyager herself. In the Lower Decks episode, Season 4, Episode 1, Tuvix, we get this grand, basically, celebration of all things Voyager. In Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 1, Tuvix, that's TWO, not TU-Vix, the USS Cerritos is tasked, he tasks me, with helping curator Beljo Tweakle, don't remember if I'm pronouncing that correctly, relocate the USS Voyager to San Francisco. Does that mean that Voyager is a San Francisco treat? I always thought that was rice-a-roni. Definitely should edit that joke out, but I don't think I'm going to. Where the famed starship is set to become a museum. On the now grounded USS Voyager, the crew are represented by mannequins wearing mission-worn uniforms in appropriate locations. Displays throughout the Voyager recall some of the weirdest things that happened in Star Trek Voyager, from Paris and Janeway's unfortunate Warp 10 salamander incident to the very fortunate Neelix cheese that once again saves the day. Despite being a starship, we're still counting the USS Voyager as one of the Star Trek Voyager characters in Star Trek Lower Decks, because Star Trek hero ships have features that are unique to each vessel and help make each Star Trek show what it is. The USS Voyager itself is a character in its own right. The Intrepid-class starship's bio-neural gel packs even make the USS Voyager a little bit more alive than the Star Trek ships of the past.
Not as deep as my cuts.
The clown, Michael McKean, Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 1, Tuvix, the one we just spoke about. Originally featured as the villain in Star Trek Voyager Season 2, Episode 23, The Thaw, the clown, Michael McKean, appears as a hologram in Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 1, Tuvix. I feel like that was a very repetitive way of saying the information that was already stated in the headline. I digress. Curiously, the clown wasn't a hologram in The Thaw, but an entity that was created as a manifestation of fear within a virtual environment. The clown only wanted to survive, so he kept his victims terrified in order to feed off their fear. Star Trek Lower Decks implies that someone on the USS Voyager recreated the clown as a character for a holodeck program. Because the solution to beating the clown in The Thaw involved trading the victims' lives for a holographic version of Captain Janeway, the holographic clown may have been used to test run the solution on the holodeck before actually carrying out the plan. Or I don't know, maybe Tuvok just made another trading program like he did to beat the Maquis or something like that. You know what, I'm gonna have to go look this up, because I could have sworn that wasn't Michael McKean voicing the character again in this episode. I might be mistaken, maybe it was just Chaotica who didn't return, but I'll look all of them up and then put my findings on screen for you. Coming down, we actually get now Dr. Chaotica, Martin Rayner, from the same very episode I just spoke of in the last couple. During the USS Voyager's relocation mission in the Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4 premiere Tuvok, the villainous Dr. Chaotica, Martin Rayner, leads Star Trek Voyager's trio of holographic characters who are accidentally unleashed on the unsuspecting USS Cerritos crew, originating from Tom Paris's Serialized Adventures of Captain Proton holodeck program.
Surrender now or face the wrath of Chaotica!
Chaotica is displayed in grainy, period-appropriate grayscale by the holo-emitters that have been installed throughout the USS Voyager's corridors. And we get another super secret note. The holo-emitters that were installed on the USS Voyager after its return are a standard feature on Star Trek Prodigy's USS Voyager A. Not exactly the note I was expecting, but I guess it's good to know. Chaotica must be met with an appropriate amount of Captain Proton melodrama in order to be defeated, and subsequently contained. Fortunately, Ensign Boimler has that in spades, as Boimler proclaims that he's the long-lost son of Captain Proton. Alright, I apparently was mistaken, because according to this, all of these characters were voiced by their original actors, so I guess that's on me. Michael Sullivan, Finton McEwen, Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4 Episode 1 Tuvok. Holographic bartender Michael Sullivan is a character from another one of Tom Paris's holodeck creations, the 19th century Irish town of Fairhaven. Sullivan is a simple man whose appearance and social parameters were tweaked by Captain Janeway. Tweaked. Sure, they were tweaked to appeal to Catherine as a holographic love interest.
I love you, but I can't bewitch you.
In Star Trek Lower Decks, Sullivan was released alongside Chaotica and the Clown, but Michael's sights aren't set on villainy. Instead, Michael simply misses his wife, which again was a repeated joke throughout the season in several episodes. I haven't gone back to see how many times it was, but there were several episodes where a character said, "I miss my wife," who Janeway carelessly deleted in Star Trek Voyager Season 6 Episode 11, Fairhaven. Although Michael Sullivan isn't one of Star Trek's sentient holograms, he is still aware that Fairhaven exists within the confines of the USS Voyager. Janeway's tinkering gave Michael curiosity and intelligence, so he can grasp the concept of a ship sailing through space, instead of across the sea, so he could understand why Janeway's Fairhaven alter ego was away from the town just so often. And now, of course, number one, the reason this list was probably created in the first place, Lieutenant Harry Kim, and probably not the Kim tones, Garrett Wang. Lower Decks Season 5, who knows what episode and how frequently he makes appearances. In the recent trailer for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Star Trek Voyager's Harry Kim is finally promoted to Lieutenant, or is he?
You're all still ensign?
Near the trailer's end, an entire crowd of Kims is gathered together, some outfitted in variant uniforms like the gray-shouldered Starfleet uniform from Star Trek First Contact and the racing suit from Star Trek Voyager Season 7 Episode 3 Drive, one of my favorite variant uniforms in Star Trek whole stop. Only one Harry Kim variant sports 2 pips on his collar, however, and this Lieutenant Kim appears appalled that his doubles are still ensigns. Honestly, if they don't have at least one dumb Rick version of Ensign Harry Kim out there who has been demoted to cadet or something along those lines, I might have a conniption. Tip: Star Trek Voyager series finale Endgame features Captain Harry Kim in an alternate future timeline. Prime timeline Harry Kim must get there someday, right? Actually, if you want to quibble a little bit, original Harry Kim is probably dead in that episode where Voyager was split into two, and alternate Harry Kim and alternate Naomi Wildman came to live on the Prime version of the ship. Or, if you want to go along the lines of the way that Garrett Wang believes it happened, he and Naomi are the only Prime timeline versions left, and everyone else on the ship is a dead duplicate. But, again, I digress, that's not relevant to this story whatsoever. Clues throughout Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5 teasers and trailers suggest that Star Trek's multiverse will play a role in the upcoming final season, so whether Lieutenant Harry Kim is from the Prime universe remains to be seen. Regardless, Lieutenant Kim finally exists somewhere, and it's fitting that Star Trek Lower Decks, as Star Trek's animated celebration of junior officers, is the series to honor Starfleet's hardest working ensign with a long-awaited promotion. Alright guys, there you have it. Those are the Star Trek Voyager characters who have appeared in Lower Decks or are set to appear in Lower Decks. Have to imagine we're actually going to get more than just Harry Kim in Season 5, but that still remains to be seen. Which one of these is your favorite Star Trek character to appear in Lower Decks? Do you like seeing these slightly, I was going to say absurd, slightly more heightened versions of their original characters in Lower Decks? Do you think we need all of the fan service? I don't know, I'm rambling right now. I just want to know, what do you guys think? Tell me every single thing, every thought in your head down below in the comments while you're there. Like, share, subscribe, join the channel like a lot of cool people that you're probably seeing on screen as well. But until next time...
Join the revolution of neon dreams.